The flight was supposed to be ordinary, just another long-haul journey in the quiet hum of first class. But for one high-powered CEO, it turned into a moment she would never forget. She had been traveling for hours, exhausted from endless meetings, boardroom negotiations, and the relentless pace of running a billion-dollar company. All she wanted was a few minutes of rest. Little did she know, the man sitting next to her would turn her world upside down in ways she never expected. Across the aisle sat a single dad, quiet and unassuming, with eyes that held a mix of fatigue and warmth. He was traveling with his young child, juggling both parenting and the stress of life on his own. He had no idea that the woman dozing off beside him was one of the most powerful CEOs in the country, and she had no idea that leaning just a little on his shoulder would spark a chain of events that neither of them could have predicted. As the plane soared above the clouds, something happened mid-flight, something so unexpected that it left her completely speechless. Their ordinary journey suddenly felt like the start of a story neither of them could have imagined. A single glance, a shared smile, and the tension between two completely different worlds began to build. What happened next changed everything. But the answer isn't simple. Stay with us, because the moment that followed will leave you questioning everything about chance encounters, unexpected kindness, and the surprises life throws when you least expect them. The single dad shifted slightly, trying not to wake his child, but the CEO's gentle weight on his shoulder made it impossible to ignore. He glanced down, and their eyes met for the first time. There was a flicker of recognition out of each other, but of the strange, unspoken connection forming in that cramped first-class cabin. She offered a nervous smile, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear, while he returned a polite, almost shy nod. Neither spoke, but the air between them carried a quiet tension, one that felt heavier than the miles of clouds outside. As the plane cruised at 35,000 feet, the CEO's mind raced. How had she, a woman used to control and precision, ended up leaning on a stranger's shoulder? And why did it feel comforting? She had dealt with boardroom battles, scandal threats, and impossible deadlines. Yet this simple, accidental touch unsettled her in ways she couldn't explain. Meanwhile, the single dad's thoughts wandered too. He had learned to keep life simple, to manage chaos quietly. But there was something about the way she seemed vulnerable despite her power that made him wonder if she, too, carried hidden burdens. The child yawned, curling into a tiny blanket, oblivious to the tension that had quietly taken over the row. Flight attendants moved past, the hum of the engines steady, but the small bubble around them felt electric. Every glance, every slight movement, seemed loaded with meaning neither could name. And just when it seemed they might finally break the silence, something, an unexpected announcement over the intercom made both of them freeze. Eyes wide, hearts racing, the intercom crackled again, the voice calm but urgent, announcing a minor turbulence warning that had passengers tightening their seatbelts. But for the CEO and the single dad, the turbulence wasn't just physical, it mirrored the sudden, unsteady emotions swirling between them. She pulled back slightly, trying to regain her composure, yet every instinct told her to lean just a little closer. He offered a small, reassuring smile, but his mind was elsewhere, calculating how to navigate this strange, unexpected connection without making it awkward for either of them. Across the aisle, a seasoned flight attendant noticed the subtle tension and gave a knowing look, quickly retreating before the two could notice. Meanwhile, the child shifted, sensing the quiet electricity in the air, and reached out with a small hand, interrupting the delicate standoff. The dad smiled down at his child, and for a moment, their little bubble of normalcy made the CEO reflect on the life she had built, one of power, prestige, and endless expectations, but also one that felt increasingly isolated, unbeknownst to either of them. Another subplot was quietly unfolding. A fellow passenger, seated just a few rows back, had recognized the CEO and was discreetly observing her, intrigued by her unguarded vulnerability. Their curiosity added another layer of tension, a reminder that in her world, nothing ever stayed private for long. As the plane hit a patch of minor turbulence, the CEO and the single dad's eyes met again, each realizing that what started as an accidental shoulder rest had become something neither could ignore. And just as she opened her mouth to speak, the lights dimmed unexpectedly, signaling the start of the in-flight movie. But it also felt like a signal that something bigger, something neither of them anticipated, was about to happen. The air was thick with questions, and neither could predict how the next moments would change everything. The hum of the plane seemed to grow louder as the movie started, but neither the CEO nor the single dad could focus on the screen. Every subtle movement, the tilt of her head, the way he adjusted his child's blanket, felt charged with unspoken tension. She tried to look away, pretending to check her emails on her tablet, but every glance at the tiny notification on the screen reminded her of how close they were. He noticed it too, the slight tremor in her fingers, the way her lips pressed together as if holding back a thought she wasn't ready to voice. Outside, the plane hit another pocket of turbulence, sharper this time, and the sudden jolt made them both tense. Her hand brushed against his arm, accidental or maybe not, and the electricity of the moment seemed to freeze time. He swallowed, unsure whether to pull away or let the moment linger, and the child, sensing the tension between them, looked up with wide, innocent eyes. It was as if even the little one knew something extraordinary was unfolding. The fellow passenger watching them shifted, leaning slightly forward, curiosity turning to intrigue. What they didn't realize was that their presence added another layer of pressure, an invisible observer that made every glance, every hesitant smile, feel heavier than. A sharp ping from the CEO's phone broke the fragile.com. A message flashed across the screen, a reminder of a board meeting, a crisis she couldn't ignore. Her eyes widened, her body stiffened, and in that instant, the single dad's own carefully maintained composure cracked. He leaned back slightly, tension coiling like a spring ready to release. The plane dipped unexpectedly. The child squealed, and both adults found themselves holding on to the armrests, but also, impossibly, holding on to the moment they hadn't wanted to end. And just as the turbulence seemed to peak, the CEO's tablet slipped, sending a startling crash against the seat in front. In that heartbeat, the ordinary flight became anything but predictable, leaving everyone teetering on the edge of something unforgettable. The sudden crash of the tablet echoed through the cabin, drawing curious glances from nearby passengers. The CEO bent down to retrieve it, her heart still racing from the turbulence. And that's when she noticed something strange. A small envelope had slipped out from between the pages. It wasn't her usual meeting notes or boarding pass. It was hand-addressed, and the handwriting was unfamiliar. She hesitated, glancing at the single dad, whose eyes caught hers with an unspoken question. He tilted his head, intrigued, but cautious. The envelope felt like a signal that their already tense journey was about to take another unpredictable turn. She tore it open slowly, revealing a note that made her pause mid. The words inside hinted at a connection neither she nor the single dad could have anticipated. It wasn't just a message, it was a warning, a subtle clue that someone else on this flight had an interest in them, or maybe in her specifically. Her pulse quickened, the calm facade of her executive life cracking as the implications sank in. Meanwhile, the single dad noticed the change in her demeanor and reached out instinctively, placing a reassuring hand on her arm. Their accidental closeness, which had started as a moment of rest, now felt charged with urgency. The child squirmed between them, oblivious but somehow sensing the tension that hung in the air. To make matters stranger, the curious passenger who had been observing them from a few rows back suddenly stood up, whispering something into a phone. Eyes darted around, and the hum of conversation turned into murmurs of curiosity and suspicion. The stakes had shifted. What was supposed to be a simple flight had become a labyrinth of secrets, chance encounters, and hidden agendas. And in that moment, both the CEO and the single dad realized that this journey would change more than just their perspectives. It could change their lives forever. The plane jolted again, this time stronger, and the cabin lights flickered, heightening the tension. The CEO clutched the envelope in her hands, heart pounding, while the single dad instinctively shielded his child with one arm, his other hand brushing hers. She finally spoke, her voice low but firm. This isn't just a note. Someone on this flight knows who I am, and they're watching. At that moment, the curious passenger from a few rows back stepped forward, finally revealing himself. To everyone's shock, he wasn't a threat but a private investigator hired by the CEO herself weeks ago. Her company had been targeted for a major data breach, and she had suspected someone might try to get close to her, under the radar, even mid-flight. The note, it turned out, was planted by the investigator to confirm her instincts. She had been right to trust her gut. The CEO exhaled, relief washing over her, but it was short. The single dad leaned closer, asking gently if she was okay. And in that simple gesture, the barrier between their worlds, the high-powered corporate life, and the quiet, demanding life of single parenthood, seemed to dissolve. They shared a smile, fleeting but meaningful, a reminder that human connection could emerge even in the most unexpected moments. Just as she was about to finally relax, her tablet buzzed again, and the screen revealed an incoming video call. She hesitated, then tapped it. Froze. The face that appeared wasn't from her boardroom or the investigator. It was someone she had never expected to see, someone from her past she thought was long gone, and their smile carried a secret that promised the story was far from over. The plane hummed steadily above the clouds, but for the CEO and the single dad, the real turbulence was just beginning. The video call ended as quickly as it started, leaving the CEO staring at the screen in disbelief. But as the initial shock faded, she turned to the single dad, who had been quietly observing her the entire time. His calm presence reminded her that, despite the chaos, there were moments of genuine human connection that no boardroom battle or corporate crisis could ever replicate. She smiled, a mixture of relief and newfound respect in her eyes.